Hey everybody, it's Buddy Vaughn, aka Brian Vaughn VA, your favorite narrator and voice actor from Ohio. How's everybody doing out there? You guys and gals and everybody in between staying hydrated and healthy out there? Hopefully. Fingers crossed, make sure to be safe out there, okay? Now, let's get right into the story, shall we? What's the weirdest warlock concept you guys have? Part 1. It's one of two. The offspring had a succubus fiend, Genie works too, who gets their powers because the fiends never had a kid, and knowing what's out there, and that the kid wants to be/is an adventurer, wants to keep them safe, and ends up helicopter parenting. I called in a few favors, and I got you the ability to see in the dark as a gift, because you keep exploring caves. Do you have enough cantrips? How's your sword form looking these days? A shitty criminal who stumbles into a great old one and swears a pact sarcastically because they think it's their friend gifting them. Pfft, a big floating eye with C. detritus covering it? I've seen this bit, Greg. We all know you can make illusions. Sure. I solemnly swear my soul to the service of Mr. Reliable Enfants. Wakes up able to talk to minds. I like the dark and edgy warlock who made a pact with an archfey, but they instead got an archfey in training who is a tiny, sparkly, bubbly little pixie. Glitter flies everywhere when they cast the spell. Eldritch Blast is a pretty rainbow. Their tome is covered in Lisa Frank stickers, etc. The patron is actually their descendant who travels back in time to grant them the power to ensure their descendants' birth. Vice versa, the character is reborn and they seek help from their past selves. Lizard folk, exiled from their tribe, finds a dead horse and eats it. Unbeknownst to him, the corpse was a unicorn and he is slowly being corrupted by the goodness. Celestial Warlock. I played a goo warlock who went mad after reading a book. He was serving the question, a living inquiry. He started out trying to become a bard, wasn't very diligent, went to the library to hide from classes, and met the guy who had the book. The librarian gave it to him to read, and it opened my guy's eyes. He became obsessed, eventually killed the librarian in a fight over who should own it, and then ran away, becoming an adventurer on the run. Whenever he would say the word question, he'd have to stop himself and say, "The question must be answered." He would do things like shout and flip through his book, then tear out a page and eat it, or draw in the margins, write over the existing text, etc. When he hit third, the book tore itself apart and reformed as his packed tome. As time went on, I was going to have him become gradually more sane, but still driven to answer the question. The patron doesn't matter a lot mechanically for this concept, but I've always imagined it as a gulag. Your patron is the unknowable entity that is narrating your life. This is either the DM, the player, or the game system itself. Having the lucky feat and 2 levels of wizard for diviner or chronologist helps too. You, as a warlock, realize that you are a character in a game and/or a story. This realization is what gives you your powers. But it's also your life, so you still have to be somewhat invested in what happens to you. You occasionally point out meta absurdities in your attempt to educate everyone around you that they live in a game, but they all treat you like a crazy conspiracy theorist. You don't know that there are literally dice, etc., but you understand that everything is contrived. This requires a considerable amount of DM and table buy-in, otherwise you will annoy the life out of them. As you level, it represents you getting a better handle on the gamest elements of your life. A devil fiend patron who purposefully enters into a pact with a good-aligned PC in order to take out his or her rivals in the infernal hierarchy, so that they can get ahead. I don't see why this can't be a mutually beneficial agreement. You get to smite evil, and I get a promotion. For some reason, I envision the patron as John Hamm, having screw tape letters style conference calls with other fiends and taking notes. Yeah, man, that ritual sounds super impressive. You have how many cultists again? And what kind of traps did they set? Yeah, it would be such a shame if some goody two-shoes came in and smashed everything. And then feeding all that information to their warlock. Undead patron warlock, whose patron is a very old lich that has become a massive swarm of incessantly buzzing insects of all types. The warlock is stuck in a burning structure and left to die, but survives until the inferno dies out. Their horribly burned body gets swarmed by bugs carrying small bundles of flesh, which interconnect and form into what the character used to look like. Now, the patron basically always has a part of himself completely covering the warlock. When he casts spells, a small number of the bugs detach themselves and fly off to perform the magic, revealing the character's burned body underneath. The voices as a warlock. Rather than being one singular entity that bestows power upon you, it's hundreds of thousands of tiny little sparks of outer planes magic, asking questions, demanding things, offering knowledge, joking, laughing, crying. As your warlock level grows, so do the amount of voices. Maybe there were just a few initially, but they become a dissonant chorus within your mind that refuses to let you ignore them. And they all sound suspiciously like an average streamer's Twitch chat. Oh, you absolute monster. Could you imagine the level of backseat driving in that? I hate you for just suggesting it. Warlock that doesn't know they're a warlock. An unknowable entity has, for equally incomprehensible reasons, decided the warlock has performed some service for them and decides to reward them with power. Whether the PC understands this or rationalizes it to themselves is up to the player to decide. A Kenku warlock that followed some guy into the woods and heard him say some stuff at an altar. The Kenku then repeats the words and forms the exact same contract the guy just did. The patron now has a warlock he had to give some power, but doesn't know what to do with. I'm not sure how weird it is, but in one game that hasn't started yet, I'm set to play a ranger warlock that used to be a serial killer. That's a random twist. First couple of ranger levels that met an archfey by chance and fell in love with her. Aw. Third level ranger swarm keeper with butterflies that represent the archfey. His patron is actually good and was reluctant to even give him the time of day at first, but then realized he's actually pretty competent and she could use a fighter like that in her employ. So she agrees to provide him with power as a sort of employment reform program, eventually trusting him enough that she agrees to use his talents for violence for the greater good, granting him a bow with Pact of the Blade and the improved Pact Invocation, and directing him to help people. I have an idea for a Han Solo / Chewbacca situation where a human warlock's patron is a genie who pledged a life debt in gratitude for finding its vessel and releasing it. Adventuring for 100 years or so is no big deal for the genie, and it might actually be a nice way to gradually get reacquainted with the world. The genie's incredibly cautious though, and knows the dangers of giving power to mortals. But as they travel together and get comfortable with each other, the genie slowly gets more and more willing to share greater levels of power. My girlfriend's next character is going to be a Hexblood Archfey warlock whose patron is her adoptive mother, the hag that her parents made an unknown deal with when she was a baby. She wants to travel and see the world, and the hag let her go on the condition that she travels with friends and carries a book of shadows to keep in touch with. A quixotic beekeeper with a hollow, reinforced tree trunk hive on his back. At first glance, you mistake him for a bumbling old fool talking to his bees, who thinks he is a knight at the Amber Court in the service of his queen bee, constantly spouting conspiracy theories about the nefarious Ursine. But eventually, you'll realize it's all true. The bees are fey, the queen is real, and they are at war with evil fairy bears stealing their honey. Mechanically, it's a genie chain lock with the queen bee as his patron. The vessel is in the tree trunk, EB are bees attacking, the familiar is a big bumblebee serving as his squire, and the new summon spells are swarms of bees and of course, Spirit Shroud. So, this wasn't originally my idea, but I remember someone flavoring a goo as a supercomputer. Ooh. One of the shows I was on during this pandemic was Person of Interest, a show where an ex-CIA operative and programmer uses a surveillance AI to save people. So, a warlock who makes contact with this AI and is given knowledge in exchange for furthering its plans and following its orders. Again, all in the flavoring of abilities. Sounds like Skynet to me. A warlock who's a failed bard. They have ambitions to become the most famous and beloved bard in the land, but they have no talent for performing no matter how hard they try. When a patron offers to make their dream of becoming a famous bard come true, they leap at the chance, not entirely aware of what they signed up for. A warforged hexblade where the character is their sentient weapon, and the weapon controls the robot body rather than the other way around. A hexblade whose patron is their mother, a cruel and spiteful hag who has a soft spot for her child. The hag acts like an overbearing mother, sending her child gifts of magic to keep them safe on their adventure. Mine is a celestial warlock, whose patron needs someone to do all the wrong things for the right reasons. Like purge an entire village because they found out some eldritch secret, or kill a child because he will grow up to be Hitler or something. Celestial warlock. Lawful good. Always wanted to be a cleric and follow in his father's footsteps. Couldn't ever manage to connect with his god, decides to seek out a being who has a direct line to the upper planes, finds and makes a pact with this creature, and is so happy he can finally do cleric things. But his god is asking him to do some pretty messed up stuff. Can't say no to God though, right? Turns out he accidentally sold his soul to the world's only evil unicorn. I had an idea for a broad-shouldered, small-town type that wanted to be a knight or paladin, but due to a lack of funds and low-born status, was stuck as a merchant's guard. One day, he stumbles upon a magic pond with a beautiful maiden standing in the center. The Lady of the Lake gives him a big, gorgeous sword. He swears fealty to her, promising to do her bidding. Unfortunately, while he wants to be lawful good, she's less concrete in her morality. He finds himself stuck doing things that are either on the fringe of what's good or not good at all. Eventually, they would butt heads. Hilarity ensues. He'd be a variant human to get the heavy armor feat, taking Hexblade. All the other players would think he's a paladin, and that's what he would tell them. Eventually, they'll figure out that it's strange that he never heals, never smites, and his giant sword magically appears from thin air. Hey everyone, Brian Von V here, checking in after the vid. If you liked the vid, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and ring-a-ling-ding-dong that bell so you can get notified whenever we post a new video or go live. If you would like to submit a story to us to read out loud in a video or on stream, make sure to leave it in the comments below or preferably on the subreddit r/MrRipper. And for more goody-goody action, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Twitch, links are in the description below. Using a help action, you can come say hi to me, Brian Von VA, over on YouTube, where I stream games, voice your D&D characters, and do a lot of voice acting memes too. As always, I try to end things on a positive with my stories, and I just wanted to say one thing. A lot of people out there have been hurt by people who are untrustworthy or that take advantage of your kindness and your heart. Now, I just want to say, yeah, I've been there too, more often than I'd like to admit. However, that's not the end of the world. It feels like it at the first time it happens, feels like the second time, third time, every time it happens it feels like the end of the world. But I want to tell each and every one of you that you are worth love. You're worth time, you're worth effort, you're worth love. So no matter what someone does to you, pick yourself back up off the ground and keep on going. Be it a doctor that failed to see you on time, be it a job employer who kicked you out, a girlfriend or boyfriend that screwed with you, or even a family member who has abandoned you. Pick yourself up. Know that you're worth love. Dust yourself off, look in the mirror, smile, and enjoy your life because you deserve it. All the love, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye for now.